One of the most unsettling things we see as a people is the inexplicable vanishings of individuals under the most mundane of circumstances. The National Park Service Investigative Service Branch has 23 unsolved cold cases of individuals who disappeared within the national park system, never to be seen again. In today's episode, we aim to shed light on a few of these unsolved cases as we explore 3 eerie missing 411 cases that will leave you searching for answers. But first, I'd like to thank Aura for sponsoring today's episode. We cover a lot of cases here on Cold Case Detective, and sometimes the perpetrator seems to get off scot-free without ever paying for their crimes. But what if we told you that people are doing that right now to you? Those spam calls offering you the newest phone deal, or emails trying to get you to sign up for some questionable product, all stem from one initial issue: data brokers. While data brokers are legal, they are making a profit by selling your data to the highest bidder. Today's sponsor can help you fight back. Aura can identify data brokers and get them to take your name and number off the list. Not only that, Aura combines multiple services into one, and you can try them out for free for 2 weeks by using our link in the description, aura.com/coldcasedetective. It's easy to use and means you can access a VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, antivirus, and more, all for one affordable price. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping your data safe online and stop the people profiting from your personal data. Use our link down in the description to try it out today and start your 2-week free trial. Have a look and see how much of your data is out there and available on the dark web. Take control of your data with Aura. Dennis Martin. 6-year-old Dennis Lloyd Martin was last seen on June 14, 1969, while on a camping trip with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. The family were from Knoxville, but every Father's Day, Dennis, accompanied by his father, grandfather, and older brother, would visit the park for a few days, where they would swap stories and bond in the wilderness. That weekend, they made the hike from Cades Cove to Russell Field, where they camped overnight. The following day, they journeyed to Spence Field, near the Appalachian Trail. Again, they planned to spend the night there. However, everything changed when Dennis suddenly disappeared at around 4:30 p.m. He was last spotted by his father, William, running into the bushes to hide, as he, along with his brother and some children from another family who were camping nearby, planned to jump out and surprise the adults. Dennis, though, never appeared. 5 minutes passed and the other children returned to camp. Afraid for his son's safety, William began to search for him, running along the trail for the best part of 2 miles before he stopped, as he didn't think the 6-year-old could have gotten much further on his own. Shortly afterwards, the National Park Service rangers were notified of the little boy's disappearance, and before long, a search was launched. Efforts involved the National Guard and the U.S. Army Special Forces, but no trace of Dennis was recovered in the aftermath of his disappearance. It didn't help that the investigation was hindered by the weather. A downpour broke out shortly after Dennis went missing, which caused streams to overflow and trails to wash out, and likely caused any potential clues to perish. Up to 1,400 individuals assisted in the search, and while footprints were found, they were dismissed due to park officials believing they were from a Boy Scout participating in the hunt for the missing 6-year-old. However, some people, including a retired park ranger named Dwight McCarter, believe the prints may have been Dennis's. They led to a stream and disappeared, and indicated that one foot was bare, while the other wore a trainer or an Oxford shoe, the latter of which is the kind of shoe Dennis was wearing when he vanished. An article from the King's Sport Times, dated June 18, 1969, reported that one shoe and one sock were found at around 2:30 p.m., around the time the prints were discovered. It's unclear what kind of shoe it was, but reports indicate that it was likely Dennis's. Searches for Dennis stopped after June 29th and closed officially on September 14th. As of 2022, the hunt for the missing 6-year-old is still the largest search in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Following the disappearance, William offered a reward of $5,000 for information leading to his son's whereabouts. Although notable psychics at the time offered their input, efforts to find the little boy were fruitless. In 1985, almost 2 decades after Dennis went missing, a ginseng harvester came forward and told authorities that he believed he'd actually seen the skeletal remains of a child in Big Hollow, an area within the park. He said that he'd actually seen the bones years earlier, but had been afraid to come forward in case he was prosecuted, as it is illegal to harvest ginseng in national parks. While investigators did examine the area pointed out to them by the man, they were unable to locate any human remains. Park officials believe it is most likely that Dennis wandered too far from camp and succumbed to the elements. The weather dropped to about 10 degrees Celsius on the night he went missing. It is also worth noting that there is a lot of dangerous wildlife in the Smoky Mountains, including bears and bobcats, and it's possible he was attacked. However, William believes that somebody took his son, likely due to a witness who heard an enormous, sickening scream on the afternoon the young boy went missing. The witness and his family then saw a man running along the trail in the direction of the scream before getting into a white vehicle and speeding off. The FBI, though, determined that there was not enough evidence to link the two events together, noting the large distance between where the man was and where Dennis disappeared. To this day, the fate of Dennis remains unknown. When he vanished, he was a special education student with hiking and camping experience. He is noted as not being particularly fearful and has learning disabilities. 6-year-old Dennis Martin was last seen on June 14, 1969, in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Tennessee. He is described as a white male with dark brown hair and brown eyes. When he went missing, he was between 4 foot and 4'1" and weighed around 55 pounds. He was also missing one of his upper front teeth at the time. He was last seen wearing a red t-shirt, green hiking shorts, white socks, and black, low-cut Oxford shoes. If Dennis is still alive, he will be 61 years old. If you have any information about Dennis's disappearance, you can contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 615-744-4000. Stacy Arras. Stacy Ann Arras was just 14 when she vanished from Yosemite National Park in California, and her case has little information available and has made virtually no progress in the last 4 decades. On July 27, 1981, Stacy, along with her father George and 6 to 7 other individuals, were visiting Yosemite National Park. Upon reaching a clump of cabins intended for overnight stays at the Sunrise High Sierra camp, the group tied up their horses and went indoors to freshen up. Stacy showered and changed into different clothes and, armed with her camera, left the cabin, planning to head out and take photographs. The 14-year-old asked her father to join her on her amble, but he declined. The Charlie Project reports that, instead, an elderly man named Gerald, who was part of the group, went with her. The two were then seen walking downhill towards the lake, and the elderly man was spotted sitting on a boulder as the group they were with watched on from above. Stacy was last seen heading further towards the lake and going behind some trees and disappearing from view. After a while, when Stacy didn't come back, Gerald returned to camp to alert the others. He asked a group of hikers coming from the same direction if they'd seen her, but they hadn't. The 14-year-old had vanished into thin air. Once park authorities were alerted to the disappearance, an extensive search took place. It began with Sunrise staff members, but the National Park Service joined the following morning. The search for signs of the 14-year-old involved helicopters, scent dogs, and 100 volunteers, but the only thing they ever recovered was the lens from Stacy's camera around the trees where she was last seen. No blood was spotted, no cigarette butts were recovered, as Stacy was a smoker, and her camera itself was still missing. 12 days after the disappearance, the search was called off. Over the next few months, several reports came in claiming that Stacy had been spotted in Colorado and Oregon, but none of these sightings have ever been confirmed. 14-year-old Stacy has never been seen again. She was last seen on July 17, 1981, in Yosemite National Park, California. She is described as 5'5", white, with blonde hair and blue eyes. At the time of her disappearance, she weighed 120 pounds, was a smoker, and wore narrow upper and lower dental retainers. Her ears are pierced. When she went missing, she was wearing an off-white pullover windbreaker with a hood, a white jersey blouse with a lace square neckline, shorts with intermittent vertical blue pinstripes and half-inch maroon and white stripes, size 8.5 or 9 grey hiking boots with rubber Vibram soles, a gold double-wrapped ankle bracelet, and possibly round blue stud earrings. Her camera was Olympus brand and had a multicolored embroidered neck strap, and she may have also been carrying chewing gum and cigarettes. She also had binoculars with her. If Stacy is still alive, she will be 56 years old. If you have any information about her disappearance, you can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. DeOrr Kunz Jr. 2-year-old DeOrr Jay Kunz Jr. was last seen in Lemhi County, Idaho on July 10, 2015, in the company of his parents, Jessica Mitchell and Vernal DeOrr Kunz Sr., along with his great-grandfather, Robert Walton, and Robert's friend, Isaac Reinwand. Together, the family were camping at Timber Creek Campground in a remote mountainous area around 10 miles west of the town of Leodore. During this time, Jessica had been acting as a caretaker for her grandfather, and they had all decided to go on the camping trip, departing on the evening of July 9th after Vernal had finished work. The campground is only accessible by a rocky dirt road and reportedly takes between 45 minutes to an hour to navigate at night. By the time the family pulled into the campground, it was dark. Notably, the family claimed that on the journey they had stopped at several locations on their way, including the Silver Dollar restaurant in Leodore, which was closed, a petrol station, and a convenience store to pick up some items for the trip, but no witnesses saw DeOrr during these stops. Between 10:30 to 11 a.m. the following day, the family had breakfast, and Jessica asked Vernal to return to the shops as she had started her period. She and DeOrr went with Vernal on the trip, and receipts show that the couple made several stops. Jessica recalled that in one store, the Stage Stop, a man stared constantly at her toddler. However, again, no other witnesses remember seeing DeOrr during these visits. By the time the man was traced by investigators, he reportedly couldn't even remember seeing the family that day, let alone the toddler. DeOrr went missing later that afternoon, after he had returned to the campsite with his parents. Although the adults present at the time gave conflicting accounts of what happened, at around 1:30 p.m., Jessica, Vernal, and Isaac headed to the creek, where Isaac fished. They left DeOrr in Robert's care. According to some of their interviews, the family said that DeOrr should have been having an afternoon nap, but Jessica would also state that she saw him under a tree eating sweets, and that her son didn't want to come to the creek, preferring the company of his great-grandfather. Jessica also stated that Robert had claimed DeOrr was playing happily by himself beneath a tree. Robert, for his part, told the media that he didn't recall being asked to watch DeOrr. However, he later clarified that he may have forgotten or not heard the request. The family noticed that DeOrr was missing between 2 and 2:20 p.m. when Jessica and Vernal returned to the campsite and couldn't see him. According to Robert, he looked away from the toddler only briefly, and when he looked back, he was gone. He simply assumed the 2-year-old had gone to the creek to see his parents. Jessica claimed they were fishing for only 5 minutes, but Vernal said they were fishing for 15 to 20 minutes before returning to camp. The couple searched the creek for around 20 minutes before notifying the authorities, with search and rescue teams arriving on the scene between 3:45 and 4 p.m. Within 2 days, over 200 people were searching for DeOrr. Authorities utilized a helicopter, ATVs, horses, and scent dogs to help with the search, but found no trace. DeOrr left behind his most treasured possessions, including his blanket, cup, and toy monkey. His parents said he never went anywhere without them. DeOrr's parents believed that he was abducted, but in January of 2016, the police announced that the couple were suspects in the case. Law enforcement noted that the pair have repeatedly failed polygraph tests and that their stories never remained consistent, with small details changing every time they were interviewed. They stated that Jessica's version of events has changed 4 or 5 times, and that even Robert's story has changed, suggesting to them that he may know more than he is letting on, although they have also admitted that he is often confused or forgetful. They believe Robert's friend, Isaac, to be the only one who is telling the truth due to his consistent version of events. He recalled that DeOrr had been at the campsite on both the 9th and 10th of July, and that he saw the toddler in his child's seat, and then later throwing things into the fire. 2 private investigators have stopped working on the case, noting the family have never been truthful about what happened that day. The family have their own opinions on Isaac. It is unclear how he and Robert became friends, and both Jessica and Vernal have stated that they didn't know he was coming on the trip until Robert said they had to pick him up on the way. Isaac is described as Robert's former neighbor, and as someone who possibly has a developmental disability. He has a criminal record that consists of 1 misdemeanor, a domestic battery charge that was brought against him in 2006. During one interview, Jessica claimed that Isaac was an unsettling man who was rude to her and her family and made snide comments. However, in a separate interview, she described him as a quiet man who didn't speak to anyone but Robert on the trip. She also claimed that while the family searched for DeOrr, Isaac chose to drink alcohol rather than help look for the toddler, and she alleged that shortly after searchers arrived on the scene, she saw him carrying a muddy shovel with blonde hair on it. She said that she wanted to take some of the hair, but the wind blew it away. This story has never been verified. Jessica has also alleged that a worker from the stage stop told her that around 6 p.m. on July 10th, an unkempt man entered the store with a crying blonde child and purchased sweets. The man was driving a black Jeep Rubicon, and this story has also not been verified. The first private investigator on the case, Frank Vilt, attempted to track this man down, having a composite sketch made of him, but nothing came of the lead. After Vernal and Jessica were named suspects in DeOrr's disappearance, their relationship disintegrated. Vernal took a job as a truck driver, while Jessica married somebody new within a year, much to her own mother's surprise. Both Vernal and Jessica have revealed in the years since that investigators offered them plea deals if they divulged the location of DeOrr's body and testified against one another. The toddler's great-grandfather, Robert, died of cancer in 2019. He was 80 years old. Investigators believe that DeOrr was with his parents on the camping trip, but remain open to different possibilities. Searches for the toddler are still organized every year. In 2016, the Lemhi County Sheriff, Steve Penner, stated that in remote areas of the state, he has done many searches for missing people and come away empty-handed, only to find them there in previously searched areas years later. In 2019, a piece of bone was found near the campsite. However, testing by the FBI revealed that it wasn't human. The most recent update to occur in the case came in August this year, when it was announced that Philip Klein, one of the PIs who quit earlier in the investigation, has been hired to look into the little boy's disappearance. He believes DeOrr's parents know what happened to him. Klein himself, though, has a less than stellar reputation. He has been accused of harassment and even had a defamation lawsuit brought against him and his business in 2014. Similarly, following his departure from the Kunz investigation, Vernal and his father filed a lawsuit against the private investigator. However, much of the case was dismissed in 2019. 2-year-old DeOrr Jay Kunz Jr. was last seen at the Timber Creek campground in Lemhi County, Idaho, on July 10, 2015. He is described as a white male with blonde hair and brown eyes and was 3 feet tall and weighed 28 pounds at the time of his disappearance. When he was last seen, he was wearing a camouflage print jacket, blue pajama trousers, green and black checkered socks, and brown cowboy boots with a camouflage print in lighter brown. He has a birthmark on the back of his neck and has the nickname Little Man. If DeOrr is still alive, he will be 10 years old. If you have any information about DeOrr's case, you can contact the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office at 208-756-8980. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.